Hello and good evening. It is Tuesday, no it isn't, it's Monday. Monday the 18th, it's a week before Christmas, Monday the 18th of December. And tonight is the block of the month for December called Folded. And unfortunately, I wasn't feeling very well last week, so it has been delayed from last week, hence being on a Monday. Unfortunately, I'm not 100% yet, but I thought I have got to do it. So even though there's Marion watching, I doubt if I'll be able to see comments, but tonight I would like to just show you how to get it made and put it together like I usually do. And there's Sharon watching as well. So I won't be able to talk to you because I won't be seeing the comments, but it's probably better, and hopefully I shall feel a lot better by tomorrow evening when I'm going to do the joining of the quilt as you go method for these blocks. And then Wednesday, if you're in the swap group, there will be the scrap project as well. So, you know, you've just got to keep cracking on. But, you know, at the minute, I just don't know what is wrong with me. I think I look fine, but it's still a head cold, a sinus cold. I don't sound like it, but it's just, I don't feel stable on my feet. Sitting down, I'm fine, but, oh, it's horrible. I don't know whether it's grief setting in, whether it's a virus, whether I've had COVID and it's the after effects. I really don't know. I suppose the GP is the place to go, but hey-ho. So Janet's watching, Anne's watching, Bridget's watching. But I thought I'd like to sort of crack on and get it done with you. Now, I know some of you have already made the block. Well done, those that did. But there are, in the instructions, which are PDF in the files in the Sew with Trisha group for the month of December. Have I put it in? Yes, I have put it in. Of course I have. Otherwise, you wouldn't have known how to do it. There's Pamela and Linda watching as well. Jolly good. There's more of you coming on. But it doesn't explain exactly. I know the techniques are ones we've done before. And the top half square triangles, I thought for those of you, I thought we would do squaring it off rather than using the half square triangle ruler method, which if you've done them before and you've got the half square triangle rulers, you can still do them the same way. But the next one down is flying geese, where we make 4 at a time with very little waste. It's a no waste technique, but we do need to just trim off a little bit once we've made those. And then just joining them together with a rectangle and then putting them together in a 9 patch formation. As you can see here, there's 1, 2, 3 rows of 3. So I thought I'll go through all of that this evening, so that those of you that haven't made it yet will give you a better idea. If you've never used the flying geese, the makes 4 flying geese just by using 1 big square and 4 smaller squares, you would need to use this. And I know some people had asked other people how to do it, but I was always going to do the demonstration, so I know you like to get ahead of it, but tonight I will show you exactly how to, if you've never done it before, making 4 flying geese from just 1 large square and 4 small squares. It's really quite good and saves time. So I've got my sample, which is it's not the best for colour wise. I was using the same colours that I've used throughout my quilt, and they weren't ideal, because what this triangle here is supposed to, it's called folded, and it's supposed to look as this is folded towards that centre block. So what you need is a dark centre square, and when we do the flying geese, this part here is a flying geese, as here and here and here. These, the arms need to be dark and possibly the same as the middle one. And then the background is light. And then these rectangles are medium. Yeah, these are light. These are medium, the ones that come folded. And you've got your background. So you've got background, light, medium and dark. Background being this one here, so the lightest, and preferably plain or plainer than I've done. but that's the lightest of my fabrics. Then, so background, light for my rectangles, which are 3.5 by 2 when you cut. Then the medium are these ones here, which are the folded over part. And if you just use them in the same colourway, so blues, but used a background with a light, medium and dark, it would look fantastic. I think Jill's watching now. Jill's one really showed up what the block should look like, because she used tones of grey blue, and it looks wonderful. So the centre one is just a 3.5 inch square. These rectangles are 3.5 inches by 2. These are, the half square triangles are 3.5 inch unfinished, this is, before we stitch them together. And when we do our flying geese and we make 4, we start off with a 4.25 inch background. So this one here, 4.25 inch square. And then to make these little triangles here, you're going to need 4 2.5 inch squares. So it is all on the PDF, and you'll get all of those. So all those are here, all the instructions, what you need to cut here, and then the order you do them in. And just looking at the bottom here, you can see which order. So if you just lay yours out just like this, and then we'll stitch them together like I like to do, where we are stitching them all together. So we do it by column, and you can see where, you know, see that it looks right. And in this particular block, just like many of the others, it actually matters which way these go around. So you could, perchance, this half square triangle here, you could turn it 90 degrees and it would be facing the wrong way. It would be fine, you would have a block, it just wouldn't be the block that's here. So if you can live with your own stylized block, absolutely fine. But if you want it to look like the folded one, which it is called, then you will need to unpick. But the method I use for stitching them all together, so that they're, you know, they're not in the wrong order, or you can pick it up before you've stitched it all together. So that's right, we've got a few more people in here now. And for those of you who are watching afterwards, you'll be watching on catch up, because it will be in the group always, so that anybody that's joined throughout the year will still be able to make the block of the month sampler quilt. It would be a shame if they came in halfway through and only had 6 of the blocks. But there we go. So that's what I've decided to do. I'll also say at this point, thank you for all of you who have signed up for the year again, or have made sure your monthly standing order is going through from January, a continuous one. It's lovely. It looks as though we're growing even more. The other thing I put up yesterday as a little treat was PDFs on the website. There was a little bit of hoo-ha. There was quite a few questions were asked, and perhaps I should have written a longer post to tell you what to do. But basically, it was a little bit of fun that you go onto the website. There were PDFs, so in mine, quite obviously, instruction packs. So all you needed to do, they're still on there for free if you haven't been on there yet. Won't start coughing again. Just go onto the website under instruction packs, and if you just look through all of them and look for the ones that have got a price of 0.00, so free. That's all there was to it. So we're not giving out any links. It's just a case of having a look and purchasing for nothing, for free. And I know I've seen some names where, because I only set it for in this group, in the members, for the members, but there are some names that have been buying them that know and have purchased them for free as well. So I'm hoping that perhaps they'll join the group, but if not, if it is a case, I don't believe that I put anything untoward. I did put it on this page, oh sorry, not this page, the So Totally Trisha page, but whether people were just looking through and happened to spot them, but that's fine, that's fine. But please, when I do these offers, don't share any information to people that aren't in the group, but steer them towards the group so that they can belong with us and enjoy all the bits and pieces that we do. So, shall we begin? So the first thing I am going to do is pop that out of the way, here are my pieces. So I've got my 4 rectangles here. So these were my light coloured rectangles. And I've got my centre square, which is 3.5 inches. So this is my darkest one. I have got my background 4.25 inch square, along with my 4 dark 2.5 inch squares. As I say, it's all on the instructions. And then I have got 2 sets of dark and background, no, medium and background. These are going to be my folded part. So I'm putting these right sides together, and we'll work on those first of all. So let me pop those over here. And we'll do our first little bit. So I'm just going to pop you down here. There we go. And we will, so what I've done, I've got, there's two of each, 2 background and 2 of the medium, that's right, 2 of the medium 4-inch squares, and we will trim these down. But as I say, if you've got your easy half square triangle rulers, you can use those, and you'll trim to 3.5 inches, but not everybody has them. So I thought today I would show you how to trim them up using just a square ruler. So let me just pop these over here. The first thing I have done is, whoops, that's fallen over now as well. First thing I've done is I've drawn a diagonal line. Let's just come in a little bit closer. I've drawn a diagonal line, just one diagonal, it doesn't matter which way it is, but just one diagonal, and I'm going to stitch 1/4 inch to each side of the drawn line. So there we are. Let's just bring that in just a tiny bit so that you can see. I'm sure you all may have done this before, but if not, this is how we make our half square triangles. So I'm also going to have my stitch length at a short stitch length, and it will be 1.8 or 2, but I like the 1.8. So you can put your patchwork foot on, or as I'm using my standard foot, but I have moved my needle position over to 5.5, which gives me 1/4 inch seam allowance. On your machine you may have a particular stitch number which will give you 1/4 inch seam allowance. So all I'm going to do is carefully go along there, and then I'm going to put my next one underneath as well, just keeping that line very slowly across where I'm stitching into nothing. And I'm going to stitch down the next one as well. So I'm holding that as we go, and then we'll cut. And then all I'm going to do is turn, they're both stitched together, I'm going to turn them around so that I can now go back down the other side of the line. So we've got that on there nicely. Okay, so we just bring that down. I'm keeping my eye on the side of the foot to give me that 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way down. And then, as much as the machine doesn't like to stitch into thin air in between the blocks, so I go very slowly there. If you go too fast, you'll break your thread. Okay, so now I have 2. Right, so we have 2 just there. And now I'm going to cut them apart like this, and I'm going to cut on the drawn line. So I don't mind using scissors, and it doesn't matter if you're not exactly on that line. You don't want to be cut right next to your stitching, but roughly on that drawn line is absolutely fine. So now I've got 4 pieces, which at the moment they are, if you have your easy half square triangle rulers, let me see, I have one here. So if you have one of these, you can actually, or this is a half one as well, you can actually pop these on here and look for your 3.5 inch line. So you're looking for that 3.5 inch line being on the stitch line there, and you will just trim away the excess. But tonight I'm going to use a square ruler. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open out. So with the rulers, the easy half square triangle rulers, we're not going to open them out. But when we come to squaring them off with a square ruler, then we are going to actually press them open. So there is a better, I say a good way, I think the best way of pressing our half square triangles. Now, if we're having our seams together and we are pressing them to the dark side, always have your dark fabric on the top. So we'll take our first one and sound a little bit like Fiona Bruce with her good, better, best. So I'm setting the seam first of all, and then I'm just opening up, I'm pulling back the dark, and then I'm using the side of my iron so that I'm pushing that seam out like so, and I'm making sure that is fully opened rather than pressing a pleat into that along that seam line. So set the seam, pull it open. So while I'm just pulling, and then just use the side of the iron to give you a good press. See how nice and neat that looks? Okay, I can see there's more people watching now, but there's still no comments coming up. So set the seam, and then side of the iron all the way down, and I'm just pulling that just so that I know that it's fully opened out, like so. So just pull that, not stretch, but just pull it, and then you can pull the side of the iron, just making sure that it's all fully extended. Okay, now what you'll find with your, if you were using the easy half square triangle ruler, you'll know that you'll already have trimmed off those little dog ears. But as we're not doing that, and I'm going to use the rotary mat and a ruler and rotary cutter. So what we need to look at on here is that 45-degree line. You see that 45? So it's halfway across. You've got a 60 and a 30, but it's the 45-degree line up the middle. And what we're going to do is we're going to line up that 45-degree line along the seam. So this is how we are going to square them off. So I'm going to just bring that in just a little bit so that you can see, oh, it's a bit too much, exactly where. So it's this line here, this red line here, which is going exactly along the seam line. Now I'm looking for this to be, when I've trimmed it, 3.5 inches. So I'm also looking at the 3.5 inch mark here, and there's a little bit of excess fabric, and here, so 3.5, and there's a little bit of excess. So there's a little bit of excess on each side. If you can't see any, all you need to do is move your ruler up or down, but you're looking for 3.5 inches. So I'm just moving it as carefully as I can, and I'm just holding, I'm just going to hold the ruler down. There we are, so I've got that on there. So I'm pressing that down, and then I'm going to trim 2 sides at the same time to the side, and that's about the only time that I actually go across myself. And then I'm going to turn it 180 degrees. So I'm going to turn it like that, and then I'm going to get the 3.5 exactly on. So I'm going to look at that line, and so now this 3.5, whoops, I'm knocking the camera, the 3.5 is actually on this cut edge and down here as well. So I'm just going to move that up just a little bit and across. So my 45-degree line is going up the seam. The 3.5 runs along here and up that side, which is just where we have cut. So again, just hold that down, cut across there, and then across the top, and we have our perfect 3.5 inch square there. So, yeah, let's just take that out. No, not in. There we go. So I'm going to do that with all 4. So, let's see, you can see that there. Let's just, that's better. Right, hair's getting in my, so I'm looking at that 45-degree line. I'm looking at the 3.5 inches. There we are, we've got a little bit. So at the same time, what this is doing is trimming off my dog ears. So there's hardly any there. And then 180 degrees and flip that around. Get the 45, the 3.5 inch lines, top and bottom, plus that seam line, and just trim that a little bit too. Went a little bit wonky there, but that will be fine. It's because I'm in a confined space and it isn't always the easiest. So there we are. At home you'll be doing this in a lot better, more room. So just take it fairly steady, just holding that down. There we go. And you don't want the ruler moving. And so then I'm going to flip it around again, get that bit away, and look for the 3.5 down that side, 3.5 at the bottom, and then again up there, and just the tiniest of bits along there. You can see how very little wastage there is. And the last one here, tuck that behind my ears, 3.5. I've got the diagonal line. There we are. Just make sure you have got your diagonal line there, and that you can see the tiniest smidgen of fabric along each side. So I just moved that, the mat then on purpose, and then not just 90 degrees, 180 degrees, and then you just throw it on the floor because that's what happens. Okay, so that should be there. So 3.5, 3.5 at the bottom. Make sure that diagonal line is there, and then trim this away. Keep that nice and steady. There we go. So there we have our 4 half square triangles, all beautifully ready for our very next step. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll set those aside until we're ready to use them. 1, 2, 3, 4. And what we'll work on next is our quarter square triangles. That we're working on our flying geese. So, flying geese. We start off with our square, our 4.25 inch square. We're going to take 2 of our dark 2.5 inch squares, and we're going to place 1 into that corner, align those edges up perfectly, and we're going to place 1 in the opposite diagonally. That's it. So this one here. Now what you may want to do, you may want to pin. I've just used both my pins. I've only got a couple of pins up here. Let's have a look. No, perhaps there's one more. So if you want to just pin to the side, and I'll put a pin if I can find one more. Oh, I think we have found one more. Took my pin cushion downstairs. I'll put another one here. So it's just holding these squares absolutely in place. And what I'm going to do, it's a bit difficult to see on this dark fabric, but I'm going to draw a diagonal line from one corner to the opposite corner. Okay, just so that, and you probably won't be able to see this very well. I should have got my Checo marker out, or a white, so that, but I'm just, there we are, just putting that on. Be careful that you don't stretch your fabric as you do it, but you probably can just see there, I've got a diagonal line which goes through the middle of those squares, which I placed one on top of the other. So I placed one down first in one corner, and then the diagonally opposite corner I placed the other one. And I'm going to do exactly the same now as I did with my half square triangles. I'm going to stitch 1/4 inch to each side to both sides of that drawn line. So here we go. And my pins, you'll see, are out of the way. Now just be careful that that doesn't move, the one in the middle. Okay, and we'll go straight down there and we'll cut the thread. And then we'll turn this around and we'll come back down the other side. So look at that drawn line. Line it up carefully with your needle. So your 1/4 inch seam, And you can see there's my pin well out of the way, and I'm just stitching down there all the way down so that it's 1/4 of an inch to each side. So the next thing I'm going to do, just like we did before, I'm going to cut on that drawn line, and what we're going to get now in between these stitch lines, we're going to get the most ridiculous looking shape, and you'll think, what on earth is happening there? So let me keep my pins. So we'll get our pressing mat again, and we need to press these before we do the next part. So what we have are 2 big triangles with 2 dark triangles there. A little bit, the shape is going to be strange, as you can see. So we're going to do the same thing again, set the seam, and this time we're going to pull the little seam back, and we're going to press that one, and then we're going to press the other one, and we're going to press that one. So you will find, because they overlapped, one is overlapping more. I hadn't got my iron on hot. So there we are. So that will press that nicely in a minute. So what you have is almost like a heart shape. And you see, you've got 2 triangles popping off of a big triangle. So here's my next one. Set that seam. And that's the top one. So you always take the top triangle off and just press that. So that's nice and flat. And then pull the other one up and press that one over the top. Okay. So, oh, ow, that's hot. So that's it. Let's set that nicely now. So let us move on, because what we're going to do now, so now we've got 2 of those strange shapes. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take our remaining 2 little squares, and we're going to place those in the only remaining corner. So the remaining corner being here. And I'm going to line those edges up so that fits in there perfectly. And again, I'm going to put a pin. I'll put 1 pin just here to hold that in place, and then we'll do the same with the second. Right sides together, we'll place the other one into that corner, lining up those outer edges perfectly. So I'll put my pin there just to hold it, and then we're going to do exactly the same thing again. We're going to draw the diagonal line. So the diagonal line going along with where the corner that you placed the square onto, that's where your diagonal line will be. If you were to do it this way, what you would get is something like that when it was stitched. So that's not what we want. So the same with this one. We want our diagonal line from the corner that we placed our little square onto. So we'll just give that. So I'm just pressing fairly, not too heavily, but just doing it multiple times to get a darker line. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do the same. We're going to stitch to both sides of the line. So we've got 2 of these to do. So again, just holding that nice and firmly and all the way down and cut, and then we'll go up the other side or down the other side, but we will stitch across here, down here. So there is one done, and all we need to do is do the same with the other one. So line that foot with our, there we go. Ooh, it's a bit fast. And cut the thread, and then we'll do down the other side. So lining that up and straight down. So you know what we do with a drawn line. We always cut along the drawn line. So let's take that pin out and that pin, put those in a safe place, and get our scissors, which are right nearby me, and I'm just going to cut along that drawn line or thereabouts, so that we've now got 4 little pieces. And guess what? They are going to be our 4 individual flying geese. So back to the ironing. And this is where, if you've got a lot of them to do, it's good to get your everything ready and do the same thing all the time. So here we have the bit that we press back. Similarly with this one, set that seam and then flap open, push it back to run out of, I haven't got much, oh, I've only got 10%. Bear with, I need to run downstairs and get the plug, otherwise we're going to run out of steam. Wait, is it 7:30? Yeah. Right, I'm back. Sorry about that. But I don't want to run out of charge. There we are, in. And sorry, here's the plug, here's the wire. Just pop that in. Oh, can't see what I'm doing. Of course, it would be the other side, wouldn't it? For goodness sake, Trisha. Hang on. Up a bit. There we go. Right. We're back again. There's the iron. Oh, right, we have full charge now. But we were going to run out, I'm afraid. So, oh, Mum's watching. Hello, Mum. I can see you. Right, number 1 is done. Number 2, set the seam, open out and press. Number 3, set the seam. I like to do it pushing it away from me. There we go. Open out and press. Number 4, set the seam, open out and press. There we go. So we have our 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we just need to trim these. These need to just be trimmed slightly so that they are 3.5 by 2 inches. So let's just take that. I don't want to be cutting the cord. So 3.5 by 2 inches. Let's just have a look here. Now what we do need to make sure of is that we have our 1/4 inch seam allowance here. So what I like to do, actually I might use my ruler here. So this is one of my quilting rulers, my mini quilt ruler set. So along the side here, there is this 1/4 inch dashed line. So we're looking at, we want the 1/4 inch to be on that, where the, just here, where that meets the, where the 2 little squares meet. So we want the 1/4 inch to come away from here. So if we put the 1/4 inch on there and we line up, there we've got it there, we line up the bottom edge on 2 inches, you've got your 1/4 inch. So all we need to do is trim across the top there. So that's all we do with that one. So that is now, let me just check that there, yep. And then we'll do the same here. So make sure you're trimming on your dark area. So we'll line our 2-inch along the bottom. Just check that that is there on the 1/4 inch line. So that's 2. And the same here. So we're having the 1/4 inch just above the, so there's a little bit of the dark fabric that is being trimmed away to give us the perfect size, but it's a minimal amount to give us the precise measurement that we need of 3.5 by 2. So we can just check that that is 3.5, and it is. So the next thing we need to do is join together 1, 2, 3, 4. We need to join together our little pieces here, our light pieces. So we can do those one after the other. Also, we've still got our little dog ears at the bottom here, so we can trim those away. 1, 2, it just helps with the lining up. We don't need those. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. So we're just trimming those off in line with that straight edge. Now the next thing we need to do, because our little ears or our geese are pointing outwards, we want our light fabric, we want it to fit like that. So the light fabric and the points are facing outwards. So if we put them all in the same way, that wasn't the same way, so if we stack them all in exactly the same orientation and along with our lights here, we know, I'll actually put them, no, I'm going to put them like this. We actually know this is going to go right sides together with our light one. Now I'm doing it with the flying geese on top purely because I can now see just here with my stitching where my seam lines dissect, and you want your stitching to be spot on there, if not 1 needle's width, so a tiny bit just into this seam allowance here, so either on or just to the right hand side of. So all I'm going to do is align this edge here, and I'm going to stitch one after the other. So hold that down and then just make sure this fits, because the light pieces are cut to size. So it's 3.5 inches by 2, and then straight across there. There we are. So then I'll take my next one. I've got my piles of fabric here. So there is my light, and then I'm going to put this one on here. Make sure that lines up, and I'm just going to put that straight under and start stitching along there. And I'm looking for that point where my seams intersect. So there's 2. So light one down first, and then the flying geese on the top, like so. You'll see that lines up there, and that's it. So line it up from the top, and because you're doing one on top of the other, you know then whether you're actually stitching the right way or the right side, because they will all look the same. Now what's going to happen here, when we press them, it means that we're not going to chop off our points of the flying geese. So let's just pop that there, line it up from the top, put it under the needle, and then just make sure that matches down the bottom there, and then just on that point, just where they intersect. Now the thing is, if they weren't exactly in the right place, you wouldn't be able, if you stitch from the other side, you wouldn't be able to see. So by stitching with your flying geese facing upwards, there we are, then it is going to work perfectly, hopefully. So we'll see in just a moment when I just take those little bits out of the way, when I press these open. And what I'm going to do here is I am going to have the lighter fabric facing up, and I'm going to allow, to reduce bulk, there we are, I'm going to allow the triangle point, so I'm just going to set that seam, I'm going to pull that open and just press along there. So if we look at the back of it, so at the front, you can see that point is there. On the back, we've got that fully opened. So there's our triangle that was, and because if we made the seam go the other way, we'd have this bulky bit, but this way it makes it less bulky, and you've got that perfect point. So we'll do the next one here. So we'll set the seam, open it out, and press. Same here, set the seam, open it out, just give that a little pull to make sure that's fully opened, and then the last one here, set the seam, open it out. Okay, so we have all 4 there. So that we have got all of our components now. We have our 4 half square triangles, and we have our flying geese units, and we have our, so we've got 4 and 4 and a centre block. So there is my centre. Now the half square triangle units go into the corners, so like that, like that. Let's just take this back a little bit so that you can see all of it. So there is our centre. There is our half square triangle unit, half square. So the medium fabric is pointing into, I'm just putting that up a minute so that you can see. The medium one, that's better. Just move it over there just slightly. So you can see there, these ones are all pointing, the medium colour is pointing into the middle. Then we've got our flying geese where the light fabric comes into the centre. So always the light one into the centre, light one into the centre, and again light one into the centre. So that I can see looks right. Have a look at it, check it with the picture you've got here, so that it looks just like that. We've got our points going outwards, just what we wanted, our dark points, and we've got these in the centre, dark one right in the centre. So the way I like to, because it will matter if we accidentally swivel that, it's not giving the shape we want to shape. If we accidentally swiveled that, it'll make a nice block, but it won't give us the right block that we were intending to create. So the way I do it is, first of all, I'm going to put this top centre one onto the top left, and then I'm going to put the middle one onto the centre of the left, and then the bottom one onto there. We'll put these ones out of the way for a minute in exactly the same orientation as they were sitting there. And what we're going to do, we're going to stitch this top one first. So I'm going to take that to the machine, and I'm going to align these edges. Now they should be exactly matching because they're 3.5 inches square. Let's put that behind. The threads come away from behind the needle. That's better. Okay, so we'll start stitching here. We haven't got any seams to match at present, so we will stitch down there. Now, when we get to the end, we're not going to cut the thread. We're going to pull in this next block and stitch down this edge. So again, just align that edge. Keep your fingers on the edge that you're stitching and pop that straight under the needle so that you're carrying on stitching. No seam matching again, just straight down. And then we'll take the last one, just align that edge there. I can see there's a little extra bit there, but that will be fine. We shall just stitch. There we go. I should probably have just trimmed that a little bit where I didn't trim it properly. There we are. So that is coming down there. And then when we stitch the 3 blocks together, we can actually trim the thread then, but all 3, can you see how they are held together? So then all we're going to do is open them out, and we can recheck that they're in the right position. So that looks fine to me. So they're all in the right position again. So now I can take the other ones, which you'll have sitting to the side of you, and the top one I'm going to place on there. The middle one I'm going to place on there, and the bottom one I'm going to place on there. Now I am just going to, I haven't lined it up yet, but because I'm having them all together, they'll fall onto the floor. So I'm going to just align this one here, right at the top, and that should match perfectly. So again, start stitching, just make sure that lines up the whole way down. And then here's the next one. So I take the pin out because that was just holding it. At home, you'll have it just sitting at the side of you, so you can just pick it up when you need to. So here's a lovely plain seam here, no matching whatsoever, not that there's any matching anywhere. And here, so just line that up with that top, and the bottom automatically lines up because of our trimming to 3.5 inch squares. And there we have. So now we pick them up as they were laid out, and now we can see, oh, this colourway's come up a lot better, that they are all in the right place. So the next little thing we need to do, just to get them all, because we will have seams to match here, we will have, when we join these rows together, these bits we want to join to meet nicely. So, and this is where you can just pick it up, and it doesn't matter because it's not going to fall apart. But I'm going to flip it over to the other side, because what we're going to do is press our seams. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the bottom and the top centre, I'm going to press outwards, and this one in the middle I'm going to press inwards. So outwards for top and bottom, because again it allows, well, it's not much difference because there's a corner bit here, but I just think that will work really well. So with your iron, just press that one outwards, and similarly on this side, just press this one outwards. Okay, we'll give it a good press after we've stitched as well. The centre ones we're going to press inwards. Just make sure you don't press any of the other seams. There we go. And then at this end we're going to press this outwards. So outwards at each side, and then outwards just there, just for our nesting of our seams. Now I do actually like to just take that around because I can do it much better. I'm better at pressing to the left, and that will just sort that out. So having pressed all of that, we'll now flip it to the right side, have a check again to make sure that looks how it should be. Then we're going to flip, because it's all together, we can just flip the top onto the middle row. Now we want to nest just here. We want to nest that seam. So just push that together, and I would give that a little pin just to hold that in place, and that should then match perfectly there, which it does. And then we'll just put that straight under the needle, and we'll stitch along here. And just before we get to that point, we can take the pin out, and then we're going to nest this seam as well. So you can put a pin there if you want to, or as I like to do, I'm just nesting it and holding my finger there. So align those edges along the top and over there, and then this one here, that is meeting beautifully, which is just how we want it to be. Let's say if by doing that little bit of trimming as we go, it makes it meet perfectly. So there is our top to our middle. Oh, they look just how we want them to be. Can you see those points here and here? And then we're going to do the bottom up to the middle. So again, that first little nesting seam there. So I put my finger at the back and my thumb at the front, and I'm pushing them together. They mustn't overlap, but just push them together, and you'll be able to feel that they butt up to each other. And then just align that first bit, the edge there, put your presser foot down, and you're still your 1/4 inch, and I'm watching this edge here, so you can just pull that underneath just to get those edges, those raw edges to line up beautifully. And then just before we get to this pin, but once we're in the seam allowance, there we are, pull it out, and then I'm going to find this next nesting here. Yep, I can feel that's nested beautifully, and that raw edge aligns as well. And then before I move on to that third one here, just line those points up at the end here and carry on stitching right to the end, and then we can cut our threads. So when we open up, that is just how I would like that to be. So again, we can just get the iron. Actually, what I might do, now that I've got a big piece, I will put on my big iron, because I can give a little bit of steam. I do like a bit of steam. I know lots of people say no steam, no steam. So I'm going to turn it to the reverse, and then I'll see. These seams can be pressed both in that direction, or both there, or open. Now this is telling me it wants to go outwards, so this one to that way, this one to that way. So let your block tell you which way it wants to go, and I think that's because of these triangles. It's just pushing it that way. So let us, oops, is that on? Yeah, it is. So I'm just going to push this carefully over, just pull that seam out a little bit, press that down, and then again, I do like to press into my left, so I'm just pushing that down, and then we can press overall. I can press just there and there, give these ones a good press if they didn't get a good press earlier, and then flip it over to the right side, and then we can just give that a nice all over press. There we go. And similarly here, like so. And it's amazing what a difference that pressing gives. So what you can see now, you can see all of these. Let's come in just a little bit closer. So what you will have on your block, you will have this little 1/4 inch seam allowance here, 1/4 inch all the way around. These points around here, there's a 1/4 inch to the side, which will be, now that one wasn't joined very well, but so in actual fact I shall get a little bit, not wonderful, but I'm not going to unpick it. I don't mind it at all. But that doesn't meet there perfectly. However, I'm quite liking that. So let's just have a look to see. Oh, comments are coming through. Here we are. So let me hang this over here. So here is my latest one. Oh no, actually, perhaps I'll do one above the other. So, whoops, there we go. So that's the one we have just done, as opposed to, this was the one I did earlier. Okay, there we are. Now I think, can you see how my top one, this one I've just done, and using this as my medium, whereas I had to use this green here as my medium. It doesn't actually, there we are, I just think it gives it a lot better. Can you see how that, Kathleen, you'll be able to do it quite easily, just by having this slightly, the medium, and that's the dark, this is just slightly lighter than the dark, and it does make it look as though they're folded inwards. I am much more pleased. Now, although this is exactly the same, can you see how this green, it is medium in tone, so this is lighter, but it's only slightly darker than the light, and it doesn't give exactly the same. Okay, Brenda, I will have a look. Sorry, yes, yeah, I will have a look, Brenda. I hope you're well. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Glynis. Oh, Lindsay likes it too. Rosemary, apart from that one that I pointed out, I really shouldn't. But no, the points are pretty good. As I say, here, let's just have a look. No, wrong way. There we are. Yes, they're not bad. You can do these. You can do these with your pressing. And these ones here that haven't been cut off. But that is just as I was saying to you about... oh, it's a bit close, isn't it? That's what I was saying to you about if you stitch from the wrong side, where you can see where those two seams cross, and you know that you're going right where those two seams cross. So, but you too can do it. You know, I'm not special in what I know. I just tell you the things I look out for when I'm actually putting it together, and that's what it is in the pressing and in the nesting of the seams. And as I say, you know, I don't use pins very much, but using pins in particular places, like that very first nesting, usually if your first one nests perfectly, every other one will do. If that first one doesn't, it will put every other one out of place. And the other thing I like to do now, I've been doing it for a little while, is joining the blocks, the individual blocks, together without cutting them in between. Many a time before, I used to sew the row, and I'd pick the top left and I'd put the middle one on, and then I'd put the far right one on and have a row. Then I'd start another row. But you could quite easily turn one of those little blocks around, and then you'd get it all stitched and you'd think, oh, it's the wrong way round. Whereas the way I do it now, you can spot if there's an error before you've got it all stitched together. So I think it's a reasonable thing to do. Oh, the fabric, Catherine, is Songbook. I shall, in January, I will have a fabric sale. I know you'll all be waiting for one, because this month I haven't actually done a subscription box either, but we'll have a big old fabric sale, and I've got a little bit of Songbook left over. So that's the one I've been using. Tomorrow night you'll see all the blocks, because we should be here at 6:30 doing the... I've done all my quilting, but I will do this one. I'll quilt this one and then show you how to put the blocks together as a quilt as you go, joining together. So you'll see the rest of them. There are more fabrics than I've used. I think I've used half a dozen. But yes, well, that's what we will do. Thank you, Angela and Ellen and Marion. Yeah, doesn't it just show? And I suppose in a way, that's how... I really mean it. This is how it should look. And when I'd done this, I was like, well, I've done it correctly, but it just shows colour placement means everything. And hues, when I say hues, light, medium and dark. So my medium wasn't dark enough, basically, whereas I just happen to have that bit. I've used that in some others of my blocks as well. But yeah, it looks as though that has been folded over, doesn't it? Quite pleased with that. You didn't... Oh, thank you, Eileen. Right, so not 100%, but when I'm sitting down, fine. And actually speaking with you, a lot of lovely ladies, I feel a lot better now. And I hope it lasts. I hope it just keeps improving. I'll keep taking the paracetamol and a bit of pseudo ease to unblock. Catherine says, if I sew now until doomsday, I won't be able to use what fabric I have already. No, Catherine, neither will I. That's why I'd like to allow you the benefit of having some of my beautiful fabric, because there will be more coming. Oh my goodness, why do I do it? Why do I do it? I just can't. I can't bear to see beautiful fabrics just floating past me. Anyhow, yes, so that is how it is. That's the block. I've done very, very well tonight. I'm glad some comments started coming up eventually. Tomorrow night I shall do at 6:30 here. I shall do the joining them together. And on Wednesday it will be the scrap sewing project in the swap group. So, thank you, Catherine. Jan, Martin is coping. He's not good. He's stick dependent now, and we're just waiting. They're not starting to reschedule the appointments until the middle of January, so who knows? Not good. Pat's daughter-in-law has been in bed since Thursday with this new virus. Yeah, I haven't had my jab this time, and I don't know. You know, I'm not taking myself to bed. I feel tired. I had a little doze this afternoon while Martin, the boys were being very good, and I just had to have a little doze. But thank you, Bridget. I just don't know. I just don't know. And as for Martin, yeah, it is. He's had a blood test this morning, so I drove him over there. He can't even get into the car without pain and get out of it. Everything takes an age to do, and it's just very frustrating. But we shall have to wait. Wrong one. We shall have to wait and see. That's all we can do. Anyhow, I am going to love you and leave you. We'll talk a little bit more tomorrow night when we're doing the finishing off. So thank you for joining me, and thank you for all your well wishes. And I know, Pat, thank you. Hopefully things will continue to improve. Last day of school tomorrow, so I shall have the boys a few days, but it's lovely. Oh, jolly good, jolly good. Good night, Virginia, and thanks, Lindsay. So see you tomorrow, and bye for now.